Hi, everybody. Okay, let's see here. What is your problem, cat? Let's see here. I think this is it. Hmm. Let's see here. Hopefully, everybody will be having a guest on here in just a moment. Yeah, I'm just waiting for my individual who will be talking with about Gurps. Finally. Oh my God, a real conversation about a real RPG. Oh, wow. Sweetness. Banners. Ah, nice. Okay, we're back to that now. Woohoo! Hopefully that other person will be on soon. What? What? Yes, I have a cat. It meows all the. I think I've given him too much kitty crack, but it's the only thing that keeps her busy. And makes it so the layout. Currently nobody watching, which is a bummer. And hopefully. Actually, I could directly. Nope. There I go again. Itchy nose. Itchy nose has got to be the worst. It has to be the worst ever. Well, I'm going to start talking here because he's not here yet. He's got to, I guess, get ready or something. Well, considering it's like probably 10 o'clock at night where he is, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure the time difference, but it's probably later. Oh.
Hello.
Hey, Logan.
Hello.
From that great up north.
From the Canada.
Yep. Actually, I've got some really distant relatives with that are from Canada. Really distant.
That's all right. Everyone knows someone from Canada.
Actually, speaking of I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and one of my best friends was Canadian.
Where from in Canada, do you know?
Calgary, I do believe.
Calgary. That's out west. I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah. I know. Unlike some people in America, I do have a general understanding of the globe, and it's not flat. Hope that didn't offend you, but
yeah.
Oh man, these past 4 years, oh my God, they have been just so insane for me.
I can imagine. I assume Save versus Capitalism, you're a leftist, so.
Oh yeah.
Same.
The last U.S. presidential term turned me that way.
Really?
Yeah. After crazy orange hair guy, I had like no faith in federal government at all, which is crazy because I'm on dialysis and I have to get help from them to live. But I'm trying to go back to school to get my degree because my wife died here after 4 years being tortured by her medical system.
Yeah, that's a shame. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, not much I can do about that. But now I'm really scared about asking this question.
Okay.
Which version of Gurps do you like?
I played third and fourth.
Okay.
I like both relatively equally.
Okay.
Never played 2 or the first one, so I can't really comment.
I've never played any. I think my one that I have all my stuff for, except for a few bit of things, is third.
Third is got more of the supplements.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it's good. Like the first campaign I ran with Gurps was great because I just used the World War II source books. It was a World War II campaign.
Wow,
and
that must be pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun. They were a tank crew. That was really interesting. And the second one that I'm running now is a post-apocalyptic game for Gurps 4th, but I still use the vehicle rules from Gurps 3rd because they exist.
Yeah.
No Gurp. There's no, as far as I know, there's not really much in the way of vehicle rules for Gurps 4th.
No, I think what they came to the conclusion was that since 5th edition came out and made gaming quote mind-numbingly dull, no offense, but they turned it into a game in the masses, and I was afraid that was going to happen. And instead of being offensive, I mean, it makes it easy. I've played it. It's cool to play. I mean, I can't blame people for liking it, but as a DM, I don't. I like the flexibility of GURPS.
Yeah, very versatile.
Yeah, I don't like having a character class tell me to go stuff myself because it's in the rules and I should just obey it.
Yeah, only what you need.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever had a big mistake GURPS campaign? I have at least one, I know.
Big mistake?
Yeah, like you did something in it without realizing it, and then later on you realize, oh man, I should not have done that.
Not quite. What happened was it was a session for the post-apocalypse game where a bomb went off in a sandwich shop that the party was at, and so what I had the party do was everybody was apprehended, and the faction that controlled the territory said, "Look, can you help us figure out who did this?" And during the interview process, I accidentally let it slip, just like a Freudian slip, and it spiraled down from there, and they figured out who it was, but not because they passed a check. They actually confused me, and they got me to slip up.
Yeah.
So I mean, mistake, but it was good. It was a good mistake.
No, I don't know if you know, but are you familiar with? Can't believe I'm saying this because where it was filmed, the SG-1 series.
Vaguely. Vaguely. Like I know what it's about, portals to other worlds and stuff.
Yeah.
Stargate, right?
Well, yeah. Well,
Okay.
there was a D20 version of the game. It was official and everything else. But then somebody, in their infinite wisdom, which was awesome, came up with a Gurps version.
All right.
Now it's not quite. It should have came with a disclaimer, and I should have thought about it before I actually got into it. That this hasn't been play tested at all, and nobody really seriously thought. I mean, they thought enough to put it into Gurps, but didn't think enough to really
Iron
make
out the
it
chinks.
fit. Yeah, and because they had things like the Guald, which were the ones from the original movie, and the series that were like basically the hosts for the. No, I mean the darn it, the Jaffa, who are the hosts for the Gualds. That they were rated as a really high tech level, but in reality they didn't have that. I mean,
Okay.
it's like because I know it says somewhere in there that a real primitive person can use a more advanced gun. That's not a problem, because it's easy to teach somebody point in that direction and pull this thing and stuff happens.
Right.
And if you do it right enough, you'll actually hit what you're supposed to be going for.
Right.
But they just made the whole entire society knows everything on that tech level. And I really don't think most Jaffa knew that. I think there were a few that did, a few that were trained up because you had your pilots and stuff like that. But I honestly don't think everybody in the society was knowledgeable about tech level 10 technology. That's what they said that they were, which in some cases it was true. But
it's like in Star Wars, where you have parts of the galaxy that are very underdeveloped and parts of the galaxy that are super high tech, right? Like,
yeah.
So there you go. The technology levels come into play with my most recent campaign because it's a post-apocalyptic one. So there's like people walking around with like pieces of concrete attached to sticks, and other people with guns, and there's a secret Canadian government bunker with advanced technology, and things like that. It varies, so you got to play with that a bit. What I really like about the post-apocalyptic system, or the after the end modules, is that they there's modifiers for different pieces of gear according to rarity and technology level. So that's really helped out big time.
Oh, okay, cool.
I haven't had a huge problem with the technology stuff, but I've never played a high-tech campaign, so.
Yeah, I kind of screwed up with that one because I ended up letting people play non-human characters.
Ugh.
That was one of my big. Well, actually, most of the characters weren't too bad. One of them was fine. The player had been a DM before, and he made up a nice guy. I unfortunately, when I was helping a player, was thinking as a player instead of as a DM.
Right.
And I really kind of screwed his character up. I mean, his character was really powerful in one sense because he was this walking bear. But the other problem was he couldn't really use hand weapons. So the only way he could actually attack somebody is in hand-to-hand combat.
Right.
And if he did that, he'd rip somebody's head off.
Yeah, well, dealing with the lethality of Gurps is interesting. Most of my players are D&D players who came into Gurps not really knowing what to expect. And, I have a rifle that does 76 damage, and the guy's got 10 health. It's like, oh, Christ, better not get hit. So it's always by the skin of their teeth. You got to find ways to circumnavigate that a little bit.
Yeah. And I try to tell people, it's like, this is not D&D.
You will die.
Yeah, your characters will die. If you aren't smart, even then, your characters could die. Well, it's not fun if I can't my character live forever. But, I think everybody wants to. But the thing is, most of the time, though, most players I've played with, if they use a modicum of intelligence, manage to pull stuff off.
Yeah, like duck for cover, pop in and out when it's safe, check when the enemy's reloaded. When I have them go up against, balancing is hard in Gurps, right? Because like a 100-point character compared to another 100-point character might not be the same. You might have skills in non-combat situations or things like that, and then you have a guy who put everything in guns, rifle.
Well, see, that's why I always like having. I always try telling people you really need a well-rounded character.
I agree.
I just want to have guns. I just want to have guns. Well, that's all fine and dandy until he has to go to the shopkeep and buy like, soda for the entire party because they're just thirsty and want something, and he ends up like laminating the entire place with whatever guns he's got, and now he's on
Right.
the run from the law enforcement.
What
So
I tried to do was I told people, I said, create your character first. Think of the kind of person he or she is, the skills, their life experience. Then you choose your skills.
yeah,
So everybody so far, like I think it was an average of 8 skills per character, 8 or 10 skills per character, and only 2 of them were combat. One guy's got knife and rifle, another guy's got rifle. I think everyone's got knife, and
yeah.
everyone else has some kind of mostly like pistol or rifle. And then everyone else, like I got one guy who took meditation, first aid, like a lot of. Well, first aid's pretty practical, but a lot of like really out there stuff, and I really like that because I put it in the game. Other people, we got a smuggler who took camouflage, stealth, lockpick, fast talk. Another guy who's a butcher, so he took cooking, connoisseur meats, like
Oh yeah.
things like that. These things make me happy in a game. More so in
Have you?
D&D, where it's like you want to cook something, roll survival. All right, okay, now I got to go build a shelter. Oh, roll survival. Okay, well, it's a little limiting. So with GURPS, it's like you can have these kinds of scenarios. These really slow moments where the party gets together. I do it a lot in my Apocalypse game where they sit down for a meal. Someone will help cook. Someone will go forage. Someone will keep an eye out. Things like that. It's really, like we said earlier, it's very versatile, and you can get into the details, and I really like that about role-playing games.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I love that when you have those moments where players just do stuff,
Together,
whatever it is.
without you,
Yeah,
you take a step back
yeah,
and you watch the magic happen. It's very good.
yeah. I like it because I'm not really big on the competitive type game things. I mean, I can play one. But I like this because you're all in it together to do something, whatever it is.
Right.
Even if it's like a silly thing. Like I was and now this is D&D, but this was years ago. I didn't finish the game because I ended up going because I was in the army and I went off to Germany. But our thing was we were trying to reignite the eternal party, and it was just kind of a silly thing. Like there's a dwarven business club of men who did things that might be slightly shady. That they're one, I don't know why, but for some reason the inn kept on changing its name every time you went to it. Supposedly in confusing law enforcement on who owned the place.
That's good.
Which was pretty cool, I got to admit. But that's the only problem is the older you get, the more knowledge you accumulate, your what is it? The of disbelief.
Oh, suspending your disbelief.
Then you're definitely, and especially if you like game with people who are really smart and have like degrees in science, you really have to find a way to make sure that, because like you do sci-fi games and because I had a guy who was an engineer in my group.
Oh boy.
And oh my God. And my wife, she had like 150 IQ.
Damn.
So yeah. Gaming with her was interesting.
When I did the military campaign, I had 2 buddies in the army in that game, so it was cool. The guy who operated the bow machine gun and the radio was actually a comms guy in the army, so we had this really great back and forth with the comms. Everyone had a call sign, radio checks, this and that, calling in for artillery strikes if you were the lead vehicle. Like, it was pretty cool. But it added depth because they could help me with things that I didn't understand or know about.
Oh yeah.
I did a lot of research, but research and experience, they go hand in hand. They help each other.
Have you ever converted anything to GURPS?
Like a different setting, different game?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm there yet, but my first campaign was started out as a modification of the Caravan to Aenaretz, like the starter module. And I swiped all the names, so I kept. I mean, that's the closest I could really say. But I've never converted anything to GURPS. No, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of trying to. I really would like to convert a number of games, one of which being Star Frontiers, which was an old sci-fi game that TSR put out.
Okay.
There's one you may know about. I'm only saying this because I think it was made in Canada, so you might have heard of it, called Tribe 8.
It rings a really small bell, but
it was an indie group. It was an indie and it was weird. I mean, it was like really odd. I think it was made in like Quebec or something.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
Yeah, and like, but everybody was like, I think everybody was like natively spoke French that designed it.
Right.
So it was a little hard for me. I mean, I know some French, but I know Canadian French, and the 1 square inch of Parisian French you learn in American high school is probably not even close.
No, we have a lot of local things. But yeah, they call our French dirty.
Oh, yeah. I've learned a long time ago. We do not like, for example, I had a friend of mine, and I accidentally mentioned I thought she was Texan, but she's actually Oklahoman. Now, I don't know if you know much about American sports and things in college.
Yeah, the states can get, like, the individual states can get pretty heated towards one another.
Yeah, and those are like the two worst. I picked literally the wrong state to mention that she was from.
Oh boy.
Because I don't know that part of the country. I mean, America's huge, first off. And I when I did live in the United States, I've either lived on the East Coast or where I live here in the southwestern United States.
Okay.
So, I don't know anything about Texas or Oklahoma. And when she said Dallas, I was like, oh, that's in the middle of Texas. No, it's not. It's
no,
like
isn't it?
2 hours away from the border from Oklahoma.
Okay.
But I didn't know that. And I'm like, hey, I know those two don't get along, but I had no idea where it was. I'm not from Texas. And she's like, oh, okay. But yeah.
I mean, in Canada, we only have a handful of cities and 10 provinces or what have you. And the territories. So, you got Quebec, Toronto, the big ones. I guess you could say Ottawa. You got Fredericton in New Brunswick, Calgary, Edmonton, and then BC. You got Victoria and Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yellowknife in the Yukon, and I don't know much about the other places. I probably should as a Canadian, but it's a much smaller list. There's so many cities in the States, so many big cities.
Yeah. Canada's pretty big too. I mean,
yeah, but most of it's frozen.
Yeah.
Most of it's just uninhabitable.
Look, I could ski like 7 months out of the year to my job.
Depends where you live. If you live in the Yukon, yeah, for sure. Montreal, it's like, I mean, my brother's once, he put on his skates and went around the backyard a bit when it all melted and it froze. I guess you don't get snow down where you're at, but
yes and no. I live where I live. I am in the desert Southwest, but I live in the kind of the mountains. Okay. So in the winter I can get snow, but it's like a dusting, maybe a little more.
Yeah, we get feet.
Like, yeah, we don't get now in upstate New York where I lived. Oh dear God.
Yeah, it's similar. It's similar.
Yeah, at one point I was living in North Carolina, and somebody was like, "Hey, it's really hard to drive in the snow when it's." And by the way, my dad once was driving to work, and he's like, "Man, there's going to be snow on the road. People are going to be just getting into accidents." No one went to work.
Really?
It was a clear drive. My dad was like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome." Yeah. I don't do it because he's used for Massachusetts, so
boy.
Yeah. He's used to that sort of thing. But
Montreal traffic's pretty notorious too, so I understand that. On our one of our bridges, it used to be one of the busiest bridges in North America, just because of the Montreal's an island, right? Mm-hmm. You got basically 3 bridges to get there, and they're all packed every time. And sometimes they're even down to 1 lane. And that's where I come up with a lot of content when I'm just in traffic.
Yeah, I could see that. I could
especially
definitely see that.
No, I don't think any of my players are obviously listening. I told them, said, "Oh, I'm going to be doing this thing," but there's a car chase coming up, and when I'm driving, I think about that. Pretty excited for that. It's pretty cool. They're basically the story takes place in the city of Montreal 5 years after an EMP event knocks out all global technology. And it's broken up into different groups, and they're from a small borough trying to become independent. And so they're making deals with all the other groups to try to get resources. So here they're trying to get cars, but in the north of the island, there's this group of marauding Viking-esque, Mad Maxy kind of, like a car gang, right? And they go from little town to town up north, and they burn them down and take all the goods. And so they made a deal with one of the people who control that area, and so they showed up. All the cars are there. They're about to drink some champagne to celebrate, and they notice that, oh, the champagne's vibrating. What's going on? And they hear all the cars coming, and they start freaking out. And they're all They ended with them hopping in their car. So next session they're gonna have to run away or something like that. Haven't gotten it all down, but should be some interesting scenarios there. And I get to use my experience from running the vehicle game from my last campaign. So that's gonna be really sweet. Very excited.
Are there any house rules you have that you're like just dead set on that you're not changing?
Like house rules, gotta rack my brain a bit. I usually do things by the books because they're there. It's easier to follow what's already there, and if Gurps has it, I might as well use it. But I simplified the melee combat quite a bit. In grappling, I just have them roll strength, quick contest of strength, and if you succeed, you got the guy in stage 1, and then kind of play it by ear.
Okay.
No house rules really. I haven't really felt the need to. I feel Gurps is really thorough and fair.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I don't have any real issues. The only thing I have, though, there is something that on the Gurps 3rd edition that there are a few people there kind of consternated about is I don't like using strength. I mean, I don't like using health for hit points and strength for fatigue.
Yeah, I think it's reversed in Gurps 4th.
It is, and that's
right.
There are some things in Gurps 4th that I do like, and
like the will saves are better in Gurps 4th. I know that. I thought that was really helpful, and it set into self-control rolls. Very nice. I got one character who's got a phobia of heights, and he, you set it based on how you feel about the character's phobia. So that's really cool.
Oh yeah. That's why I like if I'm taking phobias that I actually have. So fear of heights definitely would be one of them. It's actually, it's not so much the fear of heights, it's the fear of the very fast impact of hitting the ground after you fall that concerns me.
All of it freaks me out. Like, I used to have a big fear of heights. But as far as house rules go, it's pretty good. Oh, there was one house rule I had in the tank game.
Yeah.
Where the tank, the loader, I created a skill called loading, and if you were successful, it would decrease the loading time, just to give the loader something to do instead of just I load another round into the gun. It's really boring.
So, no, that's kind of their thing. But yeah, if you do it properly, then yeah, it should speed up the time.
Yeah, loading easy. Put it to dexterity, and and the other house rules. No, everything was there. The maintenance for the tank was there, and the rules for 3rd edition, all the rules for collisions and things, everything was taken care of really nicely. So, did I do anything for the automatic weapon? No, everything was smooth. It was very smooth, and that's been the experience with the Apocalypse game too. It's been really smooth. And that's what I like. I think Gurps really helped that out. The rounds are quick, so people are thinking on their feet a bit. I think if you break up the turn into smaller increments, everything feels like it matters. Oh god, I made it to that pile of concrete. I can hide behind it. Thank God. And the next turn you're like, okay, what am I gonna do? Or like a buddy loading individual rounds into his rifle before he was able to afford a magazine for it. Every turn putting in one. In a firefight, that matters. So, so no big house rules really. Sometimes I would do things like if a player successfully rolled cooking really well, it would give the player some kind of arbitrary boost to their fatigue or something like that. But never any like healing items or anything like that. I think I had and all the drugs that they would take in the 40s. I came up with effects for those. Like if you took what do they call it, Prevatin, they would get a bonus to dexterity rolls. Any roll that involved dexterity. If they drank, they would get they would lose IQ and gain some fatigue, or I think it was temporary HP because you don't feel as much when you're intoxicated. Things like that, little quality of life improvements, little fun tidbits. I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing for the Apocalypse game when I introduce more the disease aspect of the Apocalypse, because in Gurps Biotech there's not a lot of there's only like the big like anthrax. There's no. Well, we have COVID now, so it'd be interesting to stat COVID.
You've been gaming too long when you hear about a pandemic. You go, man, what are the stats of that disease?
Yeah, resist HT -5. Or like it's super infectious. Like
when I was in the Army, it was funny because apparently one of the drill sergeants found some sort of letter that somebody. It's like a write-up of like a fantasy story or a campaign, and he started reading it off. And to tell you how much of a gamer I was, my first thought when I heard Evil Dwarf, we don't have one of those. It must be another gaming group. Like, not even phased me at all. Didn't even bother me one single day. Yeah. Everybody's like, "Ooh, this is freaky and scary," and like, no, it's not.
Yeah, like I work food service, and my buddy goes. I go to hand a guy a poutine, which is like fries, gravy, and curry cheese.
Yeah.
And he wanted it without like not too much sauce or whatever. I'm busy. I don't care. So I just give it to him regular, and my buddy goes, "Was that extra sauce? Was that a little bit of sauce?" I go, "No." He goes, "Oh, critical success on that fast talk roll."
Yeah.
So it's just I felt pretty good with that. It was funny.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so weird because when you talk like that, because gaming terms are so much geared to real life, as far as like. So and so did an XO. They blew that detect lies roll when she made it. Yeah.
Well, Gurps is very much like that.
And I just, oh man, I love the fact that I can just ask somebody, "What do you want to do?"
Yeah, and there's a skill for it. What do you want your character to be good at, weak at?
Even then, I've gotten to the point now because I've been running it for like 20 some odd years.
Oh wow, okay. I've only been running it for 2.
I can run. I could literally, if push came to shove, if the critical role people came by, I say that because they're famous and everybody knows who they are, pretty much.
Yeah.
And they said, "Would you run a game for us?" I could do that, and my response would be, "You don't have to make characters in the game. You could describe to me what you want, and that's what you'll be able to do."
Yeah, pretty much. Like my friend, one of my friends said for their character. She was like, I want my character to be a psychologist, but, has medical school training, is, let me pull up her character sheet, actually. Let me see what she's got. I don't remember everything. No, that's not for me. Character sheets. Use this one. Right. Yeah, she's like, I want to be like kind of like keep everybody cool. They have a dog, so they have animal handling, psychology, everyone has scrounging, everybody has area knowledge, because if you want to survive the apocalypse, you got to have those skills. But like she chose not tying, and I was like, interesting choice. And she goes, "Yeah, well, she's kinky."
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really funny because it's come up where like people have had to tie knots to like scale buildings and stuff like that. And I always go roll strength to pull on the rope, see if the knot comes undone, and if they're successful, I'm like, and if like, let's say the knot tying roll was good, said nothing happens if you succeed the strength check, It's happened where the knot that someone tied the knot and it was poor, and my buddy goes, I go roll strength, and he rolls and he fails. I go, yeah, the rope seems fine, and they climb up or they fall off. It's just stuff like that. It cracks me up. Let's see what else we got here. Other characters. I'll pull up the one for my buddy who's got the really interesting character. So he's got first aid, guns, rifle, survival, theology, scrounging, physician, auto hypnosis, stealth, diagnosis, and fortune telling. Like it's so weird. He's got all these eclectic skills, and it's a lot of fun to throw them in the game. And it's great because he wanted to create a really well-rounded character for role-playing, and he did. He's got all these personality quirks. He's got delusion, sense of duty, and vow for his disadvantages. But he's lucky. So it works out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine that he played a character, and he took like all the worst personality disadvantages you could get and still keep it under like -40. And it was funny because he was the most miserable. His character was the most miserable cuss in the entire group.
Yeah, I had a buddy.
He ended up like shooting like his character ended up shooting like some famous person or something like that because we're set in modern day. And I'm like, dude, the cops are going to come after you. He's like, I don't care. They can take me. I don't care. And the one time he should have been a nasty cuss, he wasn't. Because there's a chance he could have hit another character. But the problem is he knew that other character had body armor on.
Right.
Underneath his clothes. And it's like, dude, if you had just shot X person, nobody would have known. He hadn't called anybody in. You could have shoved the body somewhere else. And that would have been the end of it. It's
nice to, when I started, the first session of the Apocalypse game was this. An up-and-coming former political science student handed out flyers for some kind of fair that was going on in the community. So people came and showed up, and basically more or less raiders came to the party and started killing everybody. So they managed to escape, fended off the raiders, but the next day all the corpses were still littered around the city. So they spent the session cleaning up, looking for survivors, clearing out the streets, things like that. So, thinking about consequences, every time you say like the cops are going to come after you, yeah, of course, you got to think about these kind of things when you plan a game. Otherwise, you get stuck and you can't move forward. So it was it's I don't know. I think it's a good technique to think about consequences. I played another game where there virtually are no consequences to our actions, and I mean it's not the end of the world, but like I understand that the GM is trying to tell a bigger story, but GURPS kind of favors or lends towards that kind of gritty realism a little bit. Oh, yeah. So you have, so they cleaned up the bodies, and that was a big deal for a couple sessions. They went around the streets and called out to people in their house, in the scattered homes, come out, it's safe, and whatnot. What else? Other consequences to their actions. Oh yeah, like they saved this guy named Fred, who was they were delivering medical supplies to one of the towns up north, and Gerald's Boys is the name of the gang. They attacked and wiped out the whole town before they got there. So a consequence of that is when they came back to the city, he needed to learn all. He's a driver. He needed to learn all of the streets, the layout of the city to be an effective driver. So because of this, he accumulated a ton of fines. And in order to pay them off, he took a loan from the criminal families that organized after the apocalypse. So when they went to this place, they were like, that guy over there, he owes us a lot of money. And if you don't do this job for us, we're going to break your legs. So I was like, oh, consequences, Yeah. Little actions. They save a guy, and now they have to do a job for someone else. Yeah, that's one thing that really bugs me about, because I've had a lot of people, and it doesn't matter what the system is. I don't understand why my players don't do X, X, and X. Okay, fine. You're not understanding why they're not doing certain things, which would make sense. Do you give them consequences for your actions? And usually their answer is no. I go, that's why. That's why a lot of stuff in gaming, even 5th edition, if you don't give them consequences for their actions, they're going to kind of run all over the place. You need to have a living, breathing world that responds to the player actions. Yeah. Otherwise, it's players can tell that kind of thing. It's the little details that'll add a sense of satisfaction to the players. Like one guy, like another example is Paul, the guy with all the wacky skills. Every time he gets any cash, he gives it away because that's his vow, is charity. And at one point, every time they go to the market, they pass underneath an overpass where there's a community of people living there. And he talks to the leader. They quote Dante to each other. He goes, "Oh, you're a man of culture. Why are you living in the streets?" And he goes, "Heroin." And then so he says, "Okay, we're gonna go bring you to the church that's associated with the borough that's up and coming." And So they did, and now they have a larger militia for when the final battle takes place. Things like that, it's interesting. You give people things to play with, they'll play with them.
Oh yeah, I mean that's when I was playing years ago, and I find it funny because for some reason people don't understand this. Not you, you obviously would. It was like a 3.5 D&D game, and they're like, your character's most dangerous when he pulls out a sword. Your character's most dangerous when he uses spells, and then finally got to me, your character's most dangerous when he opens his mouth.
Right.
And it's like, I'm afraid every time you say something because I'm just going to end up giving it to you because there's no reason any rational person wouldn't just get it.
Right.
And it's like, because I'm smart enough to realize that, and it was funny, the party at first thought it was stupid until I went away for a game session. They were like, can you bang a bit, can you get the samurai out of jail? He like screwed up and chopped so his head off again. It's like, okay, I will talk to them.
Yeah.
Because I play. That's why I like playing characters, and I like people playing characters that are like that too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like it when characters are like gun bunnies or super swords people or whatever. I love that, but it's kind of nice to have one person party that goes, I'm not going to just try to blow stuff up.
Right. Think with your head a bit. That's why I like the slow pacing. I have action when it needs to be there. Some sessions we'll do the whole session. We'll roll that maybe 5-6 times, and what have you. You put your players in a tense situation, and creativity usually wins the day for me. Like at one point, they slept outside in the car after doing that job for the crime families, and then they woke up to a bunch of the military dictatorship faction that kind of abducted them and was going to torture them, but they managed to talk their way out of it. I'm very happy that player was there with the diplomatic skill to calm the guy down and make them, you got the wrong group of people here. And I got another guy, Hudson. He's the smuggler. He's got a boat, and they make use of that all the time when they want to skip checkpoints. They just hop on the boat and go down the river. There's a big river that leads into Montreal, and everyone's got little skills that complement each other and help that aren't necessarily related to combat or what you can do. Just it's nice. It's very nice.
And scrounging is, I don't care what the scenario is. I don't care. In GURPS, if you got scrounging, that's a useful skill. That is just one. I'll admit, I started copping out when I made my own races. And if I had 1 point left that I had to spend, I just give them scrounging.
Yeah, scrounging's great. That's fine stuff.
It's easier and it works, especially like dwarves, because they're just gonna see. I don't like how the dwarf. I don't like that greedy, and I don't like miserliness in one person.
Right.
That just I've changed because I have my own. That is one house rule I have. I have what's called financially motivated. It's like a 10-point disadvantage, not a 15. Okay. So basically, they'll take advantage of any deal, but they're not going to steal, kill, whatever to get something. They're just going to be really stingy about the money, which is fine to me. But I just don't think being some psychopath, because if you look at it because that's the thing that people don't realize is like disadvantages on a race affect a lot. It's the culture of the race that gets affected by that.
Right.
And if you have an entire race of greedy people,
you don't have a society, really.
You really don't. Yeah. Now, financially motivated, it can get tense. It could get really, really tense, but it doesn't necessarily collapse into, it's not like, dwarf so-and-so is going to turn around and, stab so-and-so so we can get that gem.
No, and plus the whole thing about dwarves and I see more as a tinkering thing. So your dwarf is scrounging, he's looking for spare parts, he's looking for odds and ends that could, he could make something with or just collect even. It's more of a curiosity thing. I've only played human characters, so I've never had the experience of playing a non-human character, and I've never played I've never been a player in a GURPS game, so that's interesting.
Me too. I think I played it once, but it was like for one session, and that was it. It wasn't really and honest, and that's what bums me out because I like the system. It's a really good system. It's a solid system. It's been around for a long time,
Well, it's got the test of time right there.
And it's like 5th edition is just like the quest for more money. That's all it is.
Pretty
They're
much
pumping up.
saving up
Go
to buy
ahead.
the chain mail or the plate mail or this or that, or copying spells into your spell book. Like I play with a guy. I go, "What's your character's motivation?" He goes, "More power." Fuck, all right.
Okay, fine. That can be, but the entire group of it's more power. That's kind of, that kind of thing should rub off on the people they deal with, because people who want power aren't generally too nice about it.
Yeah, I like he plays like a wizardy character. He just wants to learn more and more. In that campaign, I'm playing a paladin who is obsessed with the great works books. So he's like very learned, very he's not quick to action. He likes to think about stuff, and it gives some interesting roleplay scenarios, because we also have a barbarian in a group who very much doesn't get the modern, the outside world kind of. So there's always these interesting conversations. Like I remember once we were trying to get out of the city, and it was there was a barricade or a border. It's guys there saying, "No, you can't leave." And I go, "I am Sir Edmund of Winterbloom. You will let me through." And they go, "Okay." And we left, and I turn to the barbarian, and I go, "That's power." She goes, "How? You didn't even hit him. Where's your strength?" And so our characters had a conversation about hierarchy and power. And another guy was like, "Oh, could we just leave the city, please?" And I said, "No, we're having a great role play moment, man. Come on."
Yeah. See, that's the problem. Is not everybody and that's the other thing. Dynamics, again, doesn't matter what system. You get some people who are like, "I just want to thump things," which, again, nothing wrong with that. I have had days where my life is incredibly miserable, and all I want to do is walk up to an orc and turn them into something that went through a Cuisinart. So, I totally respect that. But by the same token, I like being able to role play. And sometimes my stuff, and that's I have to watch out, because I will talk forever.
Same.
But you got to give the other players time to do stuff in the game. You can't just, be the one doing everything all the time.
Yeah, I feel that. I like the worst feeling is when you roll off some dialogue and you're like waiting for a response and you never get it, and you're like, "Oh shoot,"
Yeah.
But it's gotten better. That's how my campaign kind of started a little bit. So there's lots of exposition, but not a lot of response. But now the
You're not boring me. I'm sorry if I'm yawning. It's just I got a dialysis today, and
oof.
Yeah,
that's rough.
But I don't have it for 2 days, so I'm good. I'm good. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, man. Well, that shit should all be free. Holy fuck. Excuse my language.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Yeah. It's kind of a bummer that insurance companies kind of run the healthcare world in the States.
Oh, yes, they do.
There was a woman who suffered a bear attack, and she goes, the worst than the attack was dealing with the insurance company.
Oh, yeah.
And what's terrible?
What?
No, continue.
I had a friend of mine whose wife got pregnant, and they claimed they didn't have to cover it because it was a pre-existing condition. And I'm like, excuse me? You think she's always been pregnant or something? I mean, she literally just got pregnant like a month ago.
Yeah, really.
And it's like, no, they just, if any other business tried, it's what I love about this. It's the healthcare in business in America wants the benefit of a monopoly, but they want to be able to have, they want to be able to make profits too. And It's like, if you're going to be in a capitalist system, you need to have competition. But the problem is the way it works, there is no competition. They all charge the same, and we all know it.
And all the prices are inflated because it's for profit, right?
Yeah.
So you like in Canada, for instance, our drugs the prices are set for those. So you can't charge. But what's kind of sad is that in Quebec, where I live, we have the fastest growing private healthcare network in North America right now. We've had austerity for, I don't know if austerity is a word that is part of the American lexicon right now.
Oh, I know what it means. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah,
It's an evil word.
Yeah. So we had austerity campaigns for the last, what are we, 2021 now? So like 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Started with something called deficit zero, and it ends with COVID destroying us because our public healthcare system has been gutted. So every year they cut $200 million at least from the budget. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I'm the political point of view that I am, because I'm tired of people being able to accumulate wealth to the point of where they have power over other people and can manipulate the system for their benefit.
That's it. For me, I was 15. I went to my school library, picked up some Marx, read it once, went, it's a good argument. Read it again and again and again and again and again and again for the next 2 years. Then I read Capital Volume 1 in my last year of high school and jumped into my secondary studies, and here I am now. I just read but voraciously. Everybody will go, oh, Logan, he's that communist guy, right? Like, yeah, he's fucking crazy.
What would you call yourself, a specific kind of one, or?
I'm really into this author, Gilles Dauvé. He kind of follows a train of thought that breaks off from the Dutch, German, and Italian left, so more libertarian leftism. And their whole shtick is that they want a revolution that produces communism, not its preconditions. So that means that it would start to change things immediately. None of this conquesting of state power and then using the state to transform society. A very bottom up, and it's very interesting. It's a bit more similar to anarchism, but it's not. So it's.
It sounds pretty anarchistic.
Yeah, it does. They just. I'm not really 100% certain where they disagree. It hasn't come up yet in my readings. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're on the ground doing the work and putting in the, doing the activity that makes the changes, that's what matters to me more than.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I hate saying it, but I served in the U.S. military. I've been a patriot my whole life, and I see America crumbling. It's crumbling because our leadership, literally, Biden said. Now the Medicare for all is I think it's more expensive than what y'all have up there.
Yeah.
But it's still better than what we've got now.
Yeah.
And he said if it goes through the House and the Senate, our legislative bodies, and he gets it to his desk, he will veto it. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
It's like one of the most popular things you could get through because he's conservative. See, the problem in America is we have this diluted idea that Democrats are somehow liberal.
Right. Because they're not. Like, think about it. 20 years ago, Clinton passed NAFTA.
Yeah.
So.
No, they're neolibs, which basically means they pretend to care.
Yeah.
They really pretend really, really hard, but that's about as far as they get.
Well, look at Kamala Harris, right? We got her in for-profit prisons, and then meanwhile, when she was, I don't remember her position, but she was making sure those prisons stayed open, right? So.
Oh yeah, she was a district attorney, and when somebody
that's it.
Yeah, when somebody asked her a question about how she can think it's okay for her to have smoked marijuana, but yet put young African Americans in jail, she just laughed. I'm like, that is not somebody I want in political office. I don't care what somebody's skin color is. You can do all these nice overtones, but if somebody doesn't seriously believe in X particular cause, I only voted for him because I didn't want Trump being in office.
I think a lot of people felt that way, but the struggle isn't over, and I think the leftists made that very clear. Because it's not going to be long before they turn their guns on us. So.
Oh no, it won't. No, but I think it's funny because in Texas, how we're so independent, we don't need to have, we don't need to control the companies here for electricity and utilities. Can't handle any extreme weather at all. Right.
Yeah, I remember that. The grid's going down.
And there were mutual aid societies there too.
And they're always first on the ground.
Yeah.
Same is true for Katrina and for every mass disaster.
And I hate using this comparison because it's evil and I don't like it. But people couldn't understand why people liked ISIS in the Middle East. There's a reason for that. They came in and did what nobody else would do. They set up a government. They set up health services. They set up a whole ton of stuff. Now, I'm not saying they're happy, smiley, shiny Boy Scouts or anything. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, they're downright evil, and we all know that.
Well, they derive authority from some reason. In some way, they have to. I'm not too well versed. All I know is that ISIS is basically Al Qaeda in Iraq that changed their name. So just the Iraqi insurgency, basically. But you create a power vacuum. Someone's going to step in, and that's that. The rest is history. The same thing is true with the revolution in France with the Reign of Terror. It's all the same. Someone will step in if you're not careful. And then you have the situation in like Rojava where you have actual, good things happening out of a very tragic series of events.
Wow, I didn't actually expect to. Let's see here. Did I hear something? I think my machine, my machine went ping. Yes, it did. It went ping. It occasionally goes ping for no reason whatsoever.
Right.
But
Technology.
No, it wasn't. Usually I get stuff that actually is important, and I just got something from. It was like from a 5th edition Facebook page. But
oh boy.
Wow. I did not expect to actually have leftists talk to here at the same time. I was like, okay, he said I'm a leftist, so I probably should keep quiet. And then you started talking like, oh, you.
Yeah, everybody knows me as the big leftist in my circle.
Yeah, I think I
just like to read, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what really bugs me is like there's one guy on Fox News that said, I know things. I'm like, no, you don't.
No.
You just puff up your chest and say, I know X because I feel like it. I'm like, that's not the truth. You can't say that to people. And on top of that, you're a part of a news organization. When you say that, people trust you. So if you say it's okay to shove chlorine in your veins because it'll cure you of, COVID, you're going to kill people.
Yep. It's who is it? What's John Stuart Mill? You have a responsibility to use your intelligence for the greater good.
Yeah.
So, willingly misrepresenting, it's in bad faith. It's an immoral action.
Yeah.
So,
well, some of these people don't have that much intelligence either, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's true too.
They just.
But Fox is like a really efficient propaganda machine. Like really efficient.
Oh, it is.
So.
And the reason why it sucks so badly is back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan removed what was called the Fairness Act. I don't know if you're familiar with what that means.
I know Ronald Reagan produced the political landscape we exist in now. So
basically what it came down to was you couldn't lie in the news. You couldn't blatantly say stuff that wasn't true. They need to bring that back because that would kill Fox News. It would end it just entirely.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Stuff like they do.
Well, the rich own the media, they own the political system. It's just how it be. Like, but luckily, there's other places to get your news that is, not so slanted. Like, I have a couple of newspapers from like Maoist groups, just because. And the article headlines are just so outrageous. It was very similar to these like sensationalist Fox News.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you got to pick. No matter where you go from, you got to pick the stuff out that's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, there's media training, right? You got to learn what's not an advertisement and what's real news and this and that, and everything's so motivated. But
yeah. I think as leftists, the best thing we can do is this: get together, form mutual aid societies, just quietly go around and start helping people.
Precisely.
And associate communism or anarchy, in my case, with people who actually give a damn.
Well, that's it, and that's Gilles Dauvé, and that's my revolutionary process, right? Is like actually building the society you want to live in, and not just managing the crisis, right? Like, in this little pamphlet I have, I just finished. Anton Panikowic talks to Karl Kautsky in the 1910s. And they're basically talking about what revolution is, and this idea, this like very orthodox Marxist idea that like the revolution is inevitable, it'll happen. You're pushing it off into the future, and the idea that like, okay, so the Bolshevik method where you take control of the state and use the state to transform society. What you end up doing is you're maintaining that system where the worker is they lose their surplus value. They basically you maintain the social relations that imprison the worker. So you're not actually changing anything. Nothing really changes. So for me, that revolutionary process needs to be something where you actively change these social relations for communist ones. Otherwise, you're not participating in revolutionary activity, what Marx would call counter-revolutionary activity in his article, "The Bourgeois and Counter-Revolution in France." A big part of Gilles Daudet and other people who think like him is, yes, touching on the German, Italian, Dutch left, but also going back to Marx and understanding him, very clearly. And that's where I'm at right now. That's what I want to write my thesis on for school, kind of a history of ideas, and clarifying a few things. I don't agree with 100% with Marx because people can be wrong. No one's infallible, but it's these points where you clarify that matter. Understanding the difference between the young Marx and the old Marx, the changing of his ideas. A great example of this is in the Communist Manifesto, where he, preface to one of the editions in the 1860s or something like that, where he goes, "I would have rewritten this book if I could, but it's now a piece of history." And that's how you have to understand a lot of what Marx wrote. These concrete things that exist, that are dialogues, and that matter for their immediate contexts. But it's how you apply those ideas and understand those contexts that matter, I think, anyways.
One thing I do like about Marx is the dialectical materialism.
So dialectical materialism, the word, is actually a Soviet invention, but I'm not sure if you're referring to like his dialectical process of like understanding history and class conflict as being what drives society. Because that's super useful, and I know lots of anarchists who read Marx for that reason.
I just got to say this because I've got severe attached disorder. If I don't say it, I'm going to forget. I don't know if you're familiar with the non-compete channel or familiar with Luna Oil.
No, I don't know any of these people.
No, they're online. They're on YouTube. I know them really well. They're great people.
Okay.
Apparently Vietnam. Basically, they read all the Marxist, Leninist stuff and all that sort of thing. And then with, I guess, Ho Chi Minh's additives, what he's added to it, they boiled it down to a very essential, like a bunch of books that just kind of boils everything. It concentrates everything. Right. And they've been trying to translate it into English because it's in Vietnamese, obviously.
Right.
But that's hopefully going to, and it's going to be free, as far as I know. And it's going to be coming out. Hopefully it's going to be coming out soon. They kind of got put behind because the pandemic made things a bit difficult. But
I would imagine, yeah. As far as collaborative efforts go, like I read a few journals here and there. So Traplon, a lot of French groups. But EndNotes is one of my favorites. Really cool stuff in EndNotes. They're a group there's people from Oakland, France, and the United Kingdom, I think. And the first issue is really cool because it's a dialogue between two different groups in the 70s, talking about past movements and why certain insurrections fail and things like that. Second issue is original writing from them, and so on and so forth. I think they're at issue 4 or 5 now. But really interesting stuff. EndNotes, I would, if you have the time, highly recommend.
There's a lot of stuff out there I got to read.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But EndNotes is nice because you can read one article and go, okay, I can put it down, think about it, start the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, EndNotes. It's called communization theory. It's really out there, but it's pretty cool. If you're familiar with any of the Italian leftists from the 20s, like it'll ring true.
You've gone way over my head, man. I mean, I've read
I'm kind of like I'm a geek about a lot of things, and Marxism is one of them.
Oh, I'm not complaining at all. It's just I basically got into this maybe a year, 6 months ago, kind of hardcore.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I've read Conquest of Bread, I've read Mutual Aid, and someone told me about Das Kapital, and I was like, oh dear God.
Yeah, Capital is so I read it in high school, understood like half of it. Years later, I took a course where we just read Capital. That's the only thing we did for the whole course. We read a few of early Marx just to understand like the development of the ideas, but then we just read Capital. Super solid work, but my God, it's a monster.
Yeah, if you said you read that in America, oh
yeah, well, yeah. That's why I lead with, I skirt around the buzzwords, but yeah, woo, the Red Scare did some damage, eh?
oh, big time, big time. I think there's even still some, not as much now. I mean, I remember when I was young, there were actors that were still affected by the Red Scare because they were blackballed. I mean, they say they weren't, but they
Blacklisted or
were.
whatever. Yeah,
They
pretty
literally
much.
banned them from the acting profession
Unbelievable.
because the people in power don't want to lose it.
Oh yeah, man. The world, let the world tremble at the communistic revolution, right? That's Marx.
Yeah.
What else I got here? I got a couple of books on my desk. Yeah, I got the first endnotes.
Okay.
Endnotes number one. This is the pamphlet that I just finished.
Okay. Let me write that down because I will not remember it.
This is a good one. Marxist Theory and Revolutionary Tactics by Anton Panikowiak. Another great one is Workers' Councils by Anton Panikowiak. It's about 90 pages, so it's not too long. It gives you a bit of a Marxism 101, and then he advocates for his style of organizing, which is pretty solid in my opinion.
What's
Believes
that guy's
basically
name?
Anton Panik. I'll type it in chat.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got one of those memories. You could tell me something 2 seconds later, it is gone.
Anton Panikowiak was my boy for a long time. He was who I was reading the most, and then I just graduated onto other things. But like, I still think Anton Panikowiak is really good. He was a astronomer as well, so his writing is very clear, concise, and direct. So that's very helpful.
Oh
Less
yeah,
philosophical than
yeah.
Marx. So really, really helpful stuff.
Flowery language does not help when you're trying to describe a revolution.
When I read Debord, who's this French radical, that was all of his stuff. If I can, let's go look up. He goes, what does he say here? Where he's basically talking about mass media capitalism, right? This, why isn't it not opening? Oh, there it is. There we go. So he goes, and this is the edition that was apparently designed to clarify what he was saying, right? So here he goes. The first little blurb. He echoes Marx where he goes, in societies where modern conditions of production prevail, life is presented as an immense accumulation of spectacles. Everything that was directly lived has receded into representation. Big words, but what he basically means is that, appearances over having is the mode of life now. And all of these experiences that we used to have are now commodities that are sold to you. And that's kind of the idea that he's going for the whole book. And then he breaks it, he gets into some serious details here, but it's the language is it again, I discovered this author through a punk band when I was in high school. Read it, didn't understand a word, and it took me a long time to figure out what he was talking about. And just goes to show that how you write is very important. So Panikowiak is great for that. He's a really clear, concise writer. Did you send me the Facebook message?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send you the PDF for Workers' Councils if you'd like.
I'd love that.
Yeah, it's a short work.
How available are you to talk like this?
So I finish work pretty late. It's kind of random, but Saturday nights I'm good.
Because see, I want to do the save versus capitalism thing, but I've noticed something. The most popular like YouTube channels have two people talking.
Right, there's a dialogue.
Yeah. And
There you go. Sent you the Workers'
Ah,
Council.
yes, thank you.
This is such a solid work, man. I really gotta say, it's the work that I got friends into socialism with. I think it's like the manifesto is great because it's an overview of Marx's thought process, and then he'll develop certain strains that come up in that book through other works. The Workers' Councils is great. It's self-contained. It equips you with a lot and in such a short work. I think it's one of the most important books in the history of Marxism, really. Sadly, he dunks on anarchists, but I just ignored that part. I don't think he dunks on them in this book.
It just seems like anarchists are ones that like Marx didn't like them, so and so didn't like them.
There's a reason. I think the reason why Marxism and anarchism don't get along, or why people think they don't get along, is A, because of the Soviet Union. That's a big one. But B, most importantly, is I think Marx's beef was more with Bakunin than anarchism itself. But that's about it. Like the way I've never had any problems with anarchists, like theoretically or in practice. Like they've all been great people and have been interested in actually doing, making social change happen, as opposed to, tankies and Stalinists who just want to sit in their committees and crush any actual action that happens. And that's just their specific way of doing it. They're very into steps and stages and this and that.
I highly recommend you listen to Luna from Luna Oi, because it was funny because in Vietnam they have a Marxist-Leninist communist thing going on.
Right. I'm not a fan, but
oh no, it gets interesting when I tell you this. One day, I don't know what government said something about mannequins. They can't be out, can't be unclothed or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And literally everyone ignored the law. Just flat out ignored it. They protested it. And the government kind of just slinked back and said, oh, I guess we aren't doing that one. And apparently that's a thing in Vietnam. They just, as a matter of fact, no, like when you're driving along on your little speeder bike thing, yeah. If you get an accident, everyone wants to resolve it before the cops get there.
I wonder why.
It's kind of anarchistic in a way, because it's just like, we don't want to deal with the government unless we absolutely have to.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you have an overbearing state that doesn't actually transform social relations, right? They're not following up on their promise.
They did a lot. They did amazing. They were actually one of they only, despite the fact their small size and their lack of resources, they've only had like 45 deaths from COVID.
Really?
Seriously.
Interesting.
They got their shit together, unlike the West, which let people die left and right.
Because the money is to be made, right?
Yeah.
Then again, the state over there does care about cash too, so it's. Yeah, I don't
care about cash, but they basically said we will tank our economy if it means saving our people, which is what I think every government should say. It shouldn't matter what our economy is, because we have lots of dead people. We don't have an economy.
Oh yeah, there's 10 Vietnam Wars in the course of a year. It's absolutely insane. The Vietnam War claimed 55,000 American lives, and first of all, more people die every year from lack of access to healthcare. So you got a Vietnam every year from that.
Yeah,
you got COVID with like 500,000+ deaths.
But millions of Vietnamese died, though. All because
in the Vietnam War? Oh my God, yeah.
All because the United States didn't like the fact they voted for communism.
They voted for Ho Chi Minh anyways.
Yeah.
Because
which actually seemed to be a pretty cool dude from when I've seen him anyway.
I was interested in Ho Chi Minh until I found out. I mean, it was the 1920s, but as a Marxist, you should be against all forms of oppression. He got married, and his response or his justification for getting married was, "I need a woman to learn the language and keep home." I was like, "Oh man, it's a bummer." Because you have people like Emma Goldman, talking about this stuff in the 1910s, 1890s, women's rights and radical women's rights, like pushing really, really hard and undoing centuries of patriarchy, right? So, I mean, if Emma Goldman can do it, so can you, my dude. So for me, Ho Chi Minh is a mixed bag.
Actually, Ho Chi Minh, when Vietnam first really became a country, women could vote.
Oh, that's tight.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, there is no reason why women should not be able to blah, blah. I get a little irritated because, see, I grew up outside the U.S. I mean, I know you're not American, but I bounced from country to country
similar in Canada.
And I get really annoyed when someone tells me X is bad about this. Okay, what sources have you listened to for that? Well, I just listened to X. I'm like, well, that's probably why you feel that way.
Right. We're all a product of the media we consume, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's definitely true with Facebook and social media now. You know, we have a constant stream of media, and that's why I find Guy Debord, what I just read from before, so powerful.
Yeah.
Because he kind of talks about how powerful this media is. You know, like, and there you have it. We see it.
Yeah, the
We see it
capitalist
now.
hegemony is tough to break. It really
Well,
is.
So what Debord talks about, he wants they're called the situationists because they would organize these things called situations, where they would interrupt what they saw as the spectacle, which is like capitalism or late capitalist media, culture or whatever. So these interruptions became more and more revolutionary to the point where they said, the Paris Commune was a situation, just an organized disruption to capitalism. So that's pretty cool. So
yeah, I found out a lot about Vietnam. I really have, and it's pretty amazing. Living there it's like dirt cheap to live there.
I had a buddy who rode a motorcycle through Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. It was pretty cool for him. He said it was really interesting. But the story about the cops not wanting the cops to show up is very true. And if they did, they usually took a bribe or something.
Well, well, actually, somebody was talking about it, and they were thinking that what if they just took the cops away? Because cops don't do a lot in Vietnam. Seriously,
No, they just stopped you from skateboarding.
And like there's one instance supposedly of an American getting arrested by a cop in Vietnam during COVID, and unfortunately, I know my fellow countrymen, and they can be consummate asses when it comes to being outside the United States.
It's very true.
And because I knew that growing up, because I grew up as an expat in Saudi, and my mom and dad always hated when the real Americans, and this is before Trump, would have their, I got my rights. No, you lost them the second you got on the plane to come here. You want it back, you go home.
It's I think it's very much the Americo-centrism, sort of like the whole world is America, basically, like.
I never felt that way. I was never raised to be like that, and I never couldn't understand. It's like, you're not in America. Do you not understand that?
It's entitlement. I think it's a lot of it is entitlement.
It is, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Entitlement sucks. I work with all men, and the amount of male entitlement is crazy.
Oh my God. Fragile egos abound, I swear. I don't know how sports is in Canada, but in America, you say you don't like sports, it's like somehow your man parts have fallen off.
It's very true here too. I mean, we just had a small riot because the Habs, our hockey team, they're the last Canadian team in the Stanley Cup championship, and they're advancing to the finals, and they flipped a cop car and stuff like that, and that's permissible. But if you're doing it for anti-austerity protests, it's suddenly a no-no. You start a fire for hockey, it's fine. That's patriotic.
Yeah, that's the same thing with football. I mean, they like literally, and what bothers me, I really seriously started considering doing a paper all on my own about how sports is bad for America.
There's too much money in it.
It's not just that. It's the fact that there are colleges that have gone out of business because they had to keep up with the Joneses to have a big enough football team or whatever sport it was to be able to compete with our. Well, it's great because then they're good at sports. I mean, you go there to get go there to get an education. Don't go there to chuck a ball, chase after a ball.
Like these are institutions of academia, right?
Yeah,
Not sports.
And it's like there's one coach, and I kid you not, my brother-in-law who's into football, loves the stuff, and he's a really nice guy, but told me that the what was it? Arizona State University,
right,
paid their head coach for football $9 million a year.
Wow.
I could do that for a third of that.
Yeah, not just that, but like $9 million. $9 million. You can fund, you can buy textbooks for everybody.
But yet, college students that are playing football don't get full ride scholarships. They've got to get loans. That's how cheap these. It's like, no, you're a for-profit business. You've somehow tried to become one. Then we need to tax you like one, or you need to stop having these BS events that just screw kids. And by the way, if they get messed up because of college, the college is not responsible.
Yeah.
So even if they stop playing sports after college, they're not responsible. And
Right.
if one kid was trying to put out a rap album because he was a college athlete, maybe makes some money, makes famous, they told him he couldn't. They had to take the money from it because he signed everything over to them. The second he became one of their athletes.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. Here in Quebec, we have something called the Employee of a Company Act, and they're kind of picky about who it applies to, but it applies to students, and it applies to students who have an accredited student union, and it applies to to workers generally speaking. And unless you're a temp worker or a contractual worker, then they screw the shit out of you. But basically guarantees the right to self-organize and to do things like that. That's why we have large student protests here, and why we have the cheapest education in North America. Sounds like the States needs a law like that, to protect these student athletes and everybody really.
The NCAA is hopefully coming to an end, because they've done some investigations and realized they're spending and the part that bothers me the most, okay, is if I went to ASU and I was going there and getting a degree, I could not go into that facility that's designed for the athletes. I pay to go there, but I can't walk in there. It's just for them. Why?
Yeah.
Any other student could take any other class and do just about. I mean, obviously, I can't go join the African American Union or whatever. That would be kind of a little weird, at best. But still, I mean, other than that, if there's a facility on that campus, I should be able to use it. And if I'm paying for that, I have every damn right to use it. And if you're telling me I can't use it, then why am I paying you so much? And there's one college that literally, I'm not kidding, I can't remember where I saw it. I wish I had the receipts, as they call it nowadays. But like half the tuition was for the sports. And I'm like, let's do this. We'll tell the college parents and prospective students, you can pay this full amount here, or you can pay the amount that doesn't include the sports. See how quickly that sports program folds.
Right, because it's not actually it's being subsidized essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
And in some of these cases, these colleges get literally money from broadcasting companies to share this stuff. So if they still have to use tuition, where is that money going?
It's going right into the pockets of the managers, man.
Yeah.
So what else is new? I mean, here in Quebec, university, I pay roughly $14K a semester. No, sorry, $1.4K a semester, $1,400. And the reason is because every time they try to raise tuition, 300,000 students go on strike and march through the city, for months on end.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's been that way since the 60s, since they started this up. And it's heating up right. The last time we had a big one was 2016, and it's been very quiet since then. So I'm wondering if things are rumbling now. I'm a little out of touch with the student activism. It used to be early, and I used to run strike campaigns at my CEGEP, my pre-university school, here and there. But hopefully things are heating up. But I haven't heard whispers of raising tuition, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But as far as I think it's true of all of workers' movement in general. Like Gilles Dauvé talks about, he wrote a book called Eclipse and Re-Emergence of the Communist Movement, where he talks the major workers' defeat in the 70s kind of led to sort of where we're at right now, where workers don't trust the union, but they also don't trust the political parties to make changes. So what's left? They feel they have no avenue. The answer is anarchism or my kind of Marxism, at least.
I think in the U.S. anarchism would work quite well. I really do, because we don't like people telling us what to do, and we're really a big fan of not that. It's like when what was it? Piers Morgan was telling Americans that they should have gun control. Yeah, an English guy telling a bunch of Americans they shouldn't have guns.
Yeah,
wrong person to say that.
Yeah. We used to not have strict gun laws in Canada until the Aboriginals at Oka decided to blockade the Jacques Cartier Bridge when they built a golf course over one of their burial grounds. And then they passed a shit ton of gun laws in the early 90s. And here we are now. So everyone thinks Canada's got sensible gun laws. There's a reason we have them, and it's to stop insurrection.
Oh yeah, like Meghan McCain, the daughter of the late senator, whined about the fact that California has all these strict gun laws, blah 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 blah. They're so horrible. They're anti-American. Blah. Do you know how it happened?
Yeah, it's Reagan with the Black Panthers, right?
Yeah. The really liberal left-wing communist people known as the NRA and Reagan came along and took them away because they didn't want black people having guns. That's what it boils down to. And I was actually for a while kind of for gun control until I heard it was on. Here I am advertising him like he's sponsoring it, but we're not. But he's not. Non-compete had a dialectic where it had prison and gun control.
Okay.
And had two African Americans on there. Like, yeah, if they do gun control, we're going to get screwed. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. They aren't going to pull over the white guy. They're going to pull over us. Yeah. And that's just not a right answer.
Yeah. Plus, there's the thing where like the prices for guns are different. I've noticed because when I was perusing with my ex-girlfriend in Florida, a handgun, for instance, costs anywhere between $500 to $1,000. In Canada, it's twice that at least. And the same is true for rifles. You could spend for an entry level. You can buy a piece of shit old Russian gun for $400, sure. But if you want to buy a semi-automatic center fire rifle in 7.62, it's going to cost you like $4,000. This is for the rich. Yeah, it's for the rich.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they can have their guns, but we shouldn't have them because we're too dangerous. Like where I live right now, because I'm on disability, I'm not allowed to have a gun.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Even though it's technically unconstitutional because I'm poor, apparently I don't deserve my constitutional rights. But if I were rich, no one would tell me I couldn't have my guns. I could have 1,000 guns, and nobody'd stop me. And that's just BS.
Well, it's what's that old French quote where it's like the rich and the poor are equally prohibited from sleeping on the streets?
Yeah, just for different reasons.
Yeah. Well, the idea being that like the rich will never have to sleep in the streets, so that law doesn't really apply to them.
Yeah.
Oh. It's a crazy world we live in, man. But part of being on the left is not losing faith in our ability to organize and not getting, too affected mentally by what we see as what is injustice. Who is it? Albert Camus talks about the spirit of rebellion being when you completely and utterly recognize the humanity in another. And so when you see that injustice, you put yourself on the line for that person because you can see them as a person. For me, that's the greatest argument for rebellion that there is. It's just having the empathy to realize that like this is another person and seeing an injustice done to them and going, I would want that done to me. So I'm gonna project that humanity that I have for myself onto other people.
Was it somebody said? I don't know who said this. It was somebody famous that said, "Change, be the change you want to see in the world."
I think it's Gandhi.
Yeah, and that's what blows my mind. Everybody's like, so and so wasn't a great person. So and so wasn't. Nobody's perfect. Okay, everybody's got something about them that is perfect. Right. And you just got to take. From the people that said something good or did something good, despite the fact they did other things that weren't, you got to take those good things out of that and try to exemplify those things, not the bad things.
Well, it's about approaching the point, right? So you get closer and closer to the point, broken clock is right twice a day. But when things become a purity contest, that's when I think things start to break down a bit. And it's especially a problem in Marxist circles. Where everything becomes a purity contest, and then it's like it devolves, and you end up going nowhere. It's a problem with these milieus, like social groups that exist just to perpetuate their own existence. Problems with that.
Yeah,
so you You gotta take what you can. That's what I did with my authors. I like this idea, but I'm not too fond of this one. But
Yeah.
you can be right about this and wrong about that. Same thing with Marx when he talks about like religion being the opiate of the masses. Well, it's like, man, it's 180 years later, and that's definitely not the case anymore. You can't
Oh, no.
treat this this work as like sacred. If you do that, then you're completely missing the point.
I don't
of the
think even
God
Marx
process.
did. I think I was listening to somebody that said Marx said, I change my stuff if I find new information.
Well,
And he think he rewrote
he's a
something.
scientist. He considers himself a scientist, right? The whole
Yeah.
one of the big arguments was like, our socialism is scientific.
Yeah.
Whatever, but because that leads to problems down the line, with the ways of thinking. Like the Soviets would call it the immortal science of Marxism. It's like, man, you're missing the point. No science is immortal. That's completely contradictory.
It's going to have to change with the times.
Well, yeah, like the dialectics is a process. It's not something that's static. So, and then the Maoists will accuse you of revisionism if you deviate 1% off of their line of thought. So for me, that's all into the wastebasket.
Okay, what's the difference between a Maoist and a Marxist-Leninist? I never could get that.
I don't know enough about Maoism to really say. All I know is that like it's what Lenin did to Marxism for Russia is what Mao did with Marxism for China.
Oh, and what like kind of Ho Chi Minh did for that in Vietnam.
Yeah, so Ho Chi Minh thought socialism with Chinese characteristics, Marxist-Leninism. They become ideologies, and I try to avoid that. What Marx, great example, right? What is communism? Yeah. Marx goes, communism is the real movement that abolishes the present conditions of things. Very simple. And that's the ethos behind all of what I read, that it's a real living, breathing movement, not a set of ideals that society will have to adjust itself to. No. It transforms society through our actions.
I think of it as like Bruce Lee came up with a martial art. And I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was his like big martial art that he did.
I know what you're talking about, though.
And everybody's like, oh, I want to learn how he did it. And it's like, no, that's not how Bruce Lee did it. He taught Kareem Abdul-Jabbar this martial art. But he said, I taught it to him because his body is a certain way, because his legs are a certain length. I customized it to him.
Right.
Anyone else learning this, unless they have his body type, is wasting their time. And that's what I think it should be. These are the ideas. The basics should be, those who do the work should get the most amount of power.
Well, I find that that line of thinking can get muddied because at the same time, it's Gilles Daudet talks about abolishing the law of value, right? So this idea that everybody has to be productive and valuable and deriving our worth from our productivity, that's a dangerous line of thinking for me, especially as someone who struggles with mental health issues, where like some days I'm just not productive at all.
Oh yeah.
It's like my worth isn't dependent on how productive I am, and a lot of Marxists have problems with that.
I'm in the same boat with being on dialysis.
Right. Exactly.
But
so you understand 100%.
It's not, because like I said, this is still fairly new for me.
Right.
I know the what is it? Those according.
From each according to their, I was saying it today all day at work. From each according to their ability, to each according to their needs.
And it's a different mentality too. And that's the other thing that people don't understand. They're like, well, how can we get everybody food? It'll cost a lot of money. There is no money in this society. That's not the problem. We aren't doing things for profit. When you don't have to do things for profit, things change.
Yeah, the social relations change. Your whole the relations of Marx, when he talks about the relations of production, how you relate to others in terms of your economic activity.
Yeah.
The whole point is that communism completely changes that. Panakowick in the little pamphlet talks about the proletarian organization. Not necessarily the party, not unions, whatever, but like a truly proletarian organization that will produce communism, transforming the psyche of those who participate by virtue of how far you're willing to go, and this idea of like sacrificing oneself for your time or whatever for the movement, right? Like it actually changes the way you think about things.
Okay,
so that's a process too. Kind of went off on a tangent a bit there, but
what
I've been reading recently
all the time, so don't worry about it. I was talking with somebody. Literally, we're both leftists, and it literally took me like an hour to get back to the original subject we were supposed to be talking about.
We're supposed to be talking about Gurps.
No,
But
actually, that was my intention. But when you were like open to talking about that, I'm like, oh my god, I could talk to somebody about this stuff, because where I live, even like so much as saying anything, like, you know, helping somebody without getting something for it, you'll give an old man a heart attack.
Being kind is a weakness, apparently. What?
Yeah, and I just find that bizarre, because it's like, how can you live your life being that selfish?
Well, that's it. Like, they don't see the humanity of the other. They
until it affects them.
Yeah, and
then suddenly the world changes. You know, it's like,
usually by then it's too late, though.
Yeah, by then it's too late. Like there's one guy in America. Well, it may have happened in Canada too. I'm sure it probably did. Well, I don't know. Definitely happened in America though. This guy was one of those COVID deniers. Didn't believe it existed. Was in the hospital dying and still denied it.
Yeah, we have people like that in Canada. I work for one.
Oh, not good. Not good.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. My all my family that's around me right now, and I think most of my, I don't think any of my family, even my family up in up northwest, none of them are COVID deniers, because some of them are in that really dangerous zone of, you know, health is not good for you if you get COVID.
Right. It's wild to see that, because like in Canada it's not as prevalent. It definitely exists, not so much in Quebec. Like, we have customers who will come in without a mask and make a big deal about it, but that's happened to me like 3 times in the whole pandemic.
Oh, you get people all the time doing that here.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's my right not to wear a mask. Like, this one lady, she's got a medical condition. We're like, we don't care. And, she leaves the store without a mask, and she's cackling about how she just circumnavigated the rule, basically. And we were all so mad.
Yeah.
So it happens. We all think they're dicks. So it's.
I just like that. It's like, yeah, they're just scum.
Well, they're vilified across the board. Like, nobody really likes these people. You have some people who are skeptical about the vaccine, this and that, like whatever. But the people who are outright like, these vaccines are this and that, a way to control you, they get roasted. Absolutely roasted.
I love, my favorite one is they put chips in those vaccines. No. Lady, you can't fit a chip through the needle with one of those vaccines.
Yeah, I wanted that technology, man. That'd be sick to have the technology to make microchips that small.
That would be awesome. Do you know how much there are people who are like, I think I know what it comes down to. I've been studying this while, because I've been on, like I said, on disability. So I've been doing a lot of slow, careful thinking, and I think it has to do with 2 things. One, there is an attitude, especially by white people, especially of religious origin. They feel they're better than other people. And now that that's no longer really a thing, they're freaking out.
Well, it spreads out across other spheres of their life, right? Like, so, they think that like, I know exactly what you're talking about. People who think they got one up on the people who made the vaccine, going, no, I don't trust you. Like, there's an unhealthy distrust of academia in the States, I find.
Well, we've always had that problem. America's always had the ignorant streak running straight through it, because who came here first? The Pilgrims. And what were they? Super religious. So yeah, they're not going to like people that tell them they're wrong. And that's the other thing, is I've seen so many of these people who are super religious, and I know this is more like the preacher types, like that Kent Hovind did stuff. I don't know if you've heard of him. You're not missing much, trust me.
Yeah, I hope not.
I firmly believe the Earth was created in 6 literal days.
Okay.
And there was a flood all throughout the world.
Okay.
And I watched a number of people, including some geologists, who went, that ain't possible. No. Not in ever.
I mean, I think they, like, in terms of like, I don't know what you would call this, like archaeology or whatever, but like there was a flood, but it's self-contained in an area where these people who wrote the scripture were living.
Yeah, it's like, I think somewhere in like the Valley, or between the Tigris and Euphrates, It floods there all the time,
Right.
or it used to anyway. I don't know if it still does, but yeah, and that's what happened, and that's where they think the story came from. But these people are like, the Bible's literal. The Bible's literal because it's power. You can use that to control people.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Jane Jacobs talks about, she's an urban planner. She goes, "Did we create cities for worship, or did worship lead us to create cities?" Right? Because religion played a huge role. It explained it, in terms of the history of philosophy, right? In the West, anyways, it answered quite metaphysical questions that in the East that they had already sorted out. That's why you see in Eastern philosophy they start with ethics and politics, because they've already have the metaphysics kind of figured out. Whereas in the West, not so true.
No.
So you have these religions that act as state building tools. Like I read the Bible for school, and in the Torah, at least, like it's all just reaffirmations of the Mosaic law. All the heroes are lawmakers or judges or involved with the court. It's all a state building tool, and it teaches you how to live to get to live together. So far, so good. But with the rise of capitalism, you have like things becoming an ideology. And again, you fall into that problem of the milieu, right? Like the now that religion doesn't play the same role in society, they're desperate to stay relevant. So they act in certain ways. I think it explains the behavior a bit.
Yeah.
Why these people are so fanatical. It's because they're trying to stay relevant,
Yeah, and they're not. And it's and I think, and it's like people are like, oh, they're just nice people. I'm sorry. Some of them are, yes. But some of them
are super judgmental.
Yeah, they're like, God's is only supposed to judge, but I'm going to do it because I'm here. I just no.
Straying far from God's light, my friend.
Yeah, what bothers me the most is they keep on going, this is a Christian nation, which it's not, by the way. Despite it's secular, yeah. And because the reason I know this is because one, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence never said we're a Christian nation. Never once. And the Treaty of Tripoli, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but the Treaty of Tripoli basically stated that we under no circumstances are or ever have been a nation based on Christian values.
Well, isn't it the whole one nation under God added to the dollar bill, like something that happened in the 50s?
Yeah. That a part of the allegiance, the whole one nation under God was an anti-communist propaganda thing. It was never originally in it.
And I'm convinced the only reason that socialism has this issue with religion is not because Marx said it. It's because the Soviets did it. They did it really hard. And part of the reason why Russia today is so conservative is a backlash against that. Because I'm not interested in telling people what they can and can't believe, right? That's whatever.
Yeah, I don't care what somebody believes, but you don't have a right to tell me that your special friend that you like talking to is more important than my special friend, or not having one, or whatever.
Right.
Just.
Yeah, to each their own. That's really it. It doesn't, as long as you're not hurting anybody and no one's being affected by your actions, like, do what you want. Like, it's your relationship. It's supposed to be about your relationship with God, right? Your personal relationship. So that's should be enclosed. Like, I don't go around or like, how can I put this? Let's say I have a conversation with a friend where we derive some kind of truth. Like, it's not my position to go, try to make every relationship the same way I have with that person.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a personal relationship, right?
Yeah.
And that's the healthy way to have a relationship with God, I think, if you're going to have one.
Yeah.
Is to keep it personal. Sadly, these again, it all comes down to ideology, right? It gets mixed up with ideology and politics, and so you have these attempts to put your religious morals with your political morals.
Yeah, that's what is starting to really bother me, because the United States, we're supposed to have a separation of church and state, but these people
the GOP legislators don't follow that at all.
No, they don't. They follow whatever some preacher says that, it's Tuesday, therefore marbles. I'm getting kind of, and I really don't appreciate the fact that they don't want to do anything. That's what, I mean, they literally, Mitch McConnell, the head of the Senate, I'm not the head of the Senate, excuse me. The minority leader of the Senate basically said, we want to make Biden fail. We want to make a one-party state gee, that sounds kind of like the old Soviet Union you complained about, but it's democracy, so it's different.
Right.
I just, and it's like somebody was like, the Vietnamese, nobody really wants to live there. It's like they voted for that. They voted for that.
Yeah.
If they didn't want it, they wouldn't have voted for it.
Right.
And then somebody went, what about those South Vietnamese that when the communists came through and all that stuff and they had to leave and everything and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, what made people get to the point where they felt they had to do that? It wasn't just one day, hey, I don't like having to work, so I'm just going to knock off all the capitalists. That isn't what happened.
No, it's like a 30-year struggle, like for independence too. That's another thing I have. It's like since the 1910s, pretty much. Like Ho Chi Minh started being active in the 1910s when he studied in France.
Yeah.
And then he was trained to fight the Japanese.
Yeah.
And then he turned his guns on the French. Then the French asked for help, and the Americans showed up with airplanes. And then the Vietnamese started attacking the air bases. So the Americans were like, "Fuck, let's put troops there." And then over in 3 months, no problem. And then you get an 11-year war out of it. And another thing too, in the South, they implemented that dictator. Nguyen, I think his name was.
Sorry, my cats.
No worries.
Just because I have this bad tendency of talking and not realizing what time it is, how late can you stay up? Because I think you're later than I am.
Yeah, it's almost midnight for me, so I'll go for another 10 minutes. I'll just bring it back to Gurps real quick by saying one of the factions is a mutual aid network that just kind of kept growing. And they're called Affinity Group Montreal, and they're probably one of my favorite factions. Although I gave them some flaws, they do slow torture people that they consider political opponents. But for the most part, they're interested in reviving the wasteland. They operate a large library. One of the sessions, they had to go into that territory and scour through war records of a border conflict between two different factions in order to address a certain character's trauma. That was really cool. They went to this faction for gas masks. There's a publishing house that puts out little pamphlets, so they got interviewed by them. It's been pretty cool. I get to live out a little fantasy, of having this anarchist sort of little faction going in my apocalypse. So it's been nice, a little dreamscape for me.
Yeah.
But I have to. The people who play my game don't want politics. I can't make them out to be the heroes all the time. So when I told you about that that session where a bomb went off and they had to help find out who did it, well, it ended with them dragging him by the by the shoulders into a dark cellar, door slam closed. They got out of there, and that was that. So they can't always be perfect, but I can, with the backdrop of the apocalypse, I don't think anyone's expecting anyone to be perfect. And again, when you get to a period, because I don't think anarchists would torture people for information, but maybe post-apocalyptic ones would. I don't know. I'm not gonna be the one to say that. Yeah, the theme of the game is community, and that's the faction that has the most of it, by and large.
Yeah, and that's why I think when people are like, because you hear these, I don't know if you've ever seen the program Doomsday Preppers.
Yeah,
I watch it, and it's like, it's almost a comedy thing. It really is. He's like, I'm so tough, I can survive anything, and then the slightest thing happens, he freaks out. But
well, more important than having guns and food is having community, right? Is having love. And that's what'll get you through. That's the big thing about the game, right? Like in this game, the main plot is creating the Burrow state, right? So it's like this would be impossible without having community, and community is the mother of all organization, right? So that's what the players are going to do. Like the first step was like, do you believe in this community? They're all like, yeah, for sure. So right, you're going to help make it. They're like, yeah, and They were really. One of the players actually lives in the borough that the game takes place in, so that's really cool.
Wow, that's pretty surreal, man.
So they understand like all the little detail, and I spent quite a bit of time in that community too when I was spending time with my brother, who lives there as well. They live within 3 blocks of each other.
That's pretty cool.
It's all about community.
Speaking of apocalypse stuff, because we did like some Gurps apocalypse stuff back when I was in upstate New York. There was a building I lived in that was really, really, really old. It was designed with a Mason technique they don't use anymore.
Wow.
And that building was solid as shit. I mean,
Yeah,
like you could probably take a rocket launcher, like one good shot, and it probably would still stay standing.
My brother's place is built in 1919, so it's old as heck too.
Oh yeah, it's the same kind of construction. Which it's too bad they don't make it like that nowadays. I think that would be awesome.
Because a lot of our stuff was built in the 70s, and that's when labor was at its lowest point in terms of quality. It's why all of the roads in Quebec are shit. Why all the bridges are falling apart. And I think the same can be said in the States. You had all these subdivisions popping up in the 70s.
Yeah, I think the infrastructure got like it was rated by engineers or somebody, and it got Fs across the board. Yeah. We have bridges that literally are moments away from falling apart.
That was our big bridge. Our busiest bridge was like, it's time to replace it. They finally replaced it. It took them 5 years to build it. But the Victoria Bridge, for example, was built at the turn of the 20th century, and still going strong. Built well. With
that's the other thing too. If you build it like you don't really put much thought into it, it's going to take a short time to fall apart.
And then you got to spend a shit ton of money to fix it.
Make it like you want to last for 100 or 200 years, and it's going to last probably a good maybe 100 years.
Well, yeah, you can't plan everything, right? You can't plan usage and population growth.
No.
Great example. This is the BART system, where they're like, we didn't anticipate millions of riders every day. We anticipated a few 100,000, and then the system starts to show its cracks.
Break down, yeah.
I bet it's because of all the car-based urban planning. People thought public transit was on the way out. The car is the future. Well, no, my friend. Public transit is the future.
Oh yeah. Now I don't begrudge people wanting their own cars, because you get some people like myself who need to go to appointments, who need to be there at specific times, and it can be very difficult to ride a bus.
Well, the problem is because the infrastructure isn't there, and it was actually purposely demolished, right? If you could have a city, like my brother, here's a great. If I lived where my brother lives, I would have. There's a grocery store up the street. 2 blocks away is where I would go for therapy. In the same building, there's a blood place that has blood clinic, blood tests and other things. It's a health complex basically. It's associated with the local hospital and one of the universities. There's 2 metro stations within 5 minutes of walking, so you can get anywhere in the city within minutes. It's an old city. Montreal's an old city, right? So it has a lot of these old sort of style streets. But where you see the urban sprawl, the car-led development is all in the suburbs, and it sucks to go anywhere here. If I want to go to an appointment, I got to drive. But my brother doesn't own a car, and he walks to get his groceries. He walks to go to the doctors, walk to get his MRI. All these things are doable. It just takes, again, it's all about planning and organizing. Because cities, like David Harvey talks about cities being designed for the most efficient flow of capital in mind.
David Harvey?
Yeah. David Harvey, he's a Marxist geographer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's his name, David Harvey. Yeah. And when you realize that people are only the resources they can exploit, then you realize that there's all these food deserts, that things are all far away because of cars,
Oh, I live in a food desert. If it hadn't been the fact that I had a car, because I live in this really tiny southwest part of Arizona.
Okay.
And I mean, the best I've got is they have got like we call them stop and robs.
We call them dépanneurs here. It's like a little corner store.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And they sell shit in there. And
they sell some stuff. I mean, it's mainly soda, candy bars, beef jerky, because we're Americans.
We like jerky too here.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I like it. I'm not supposed to have it, but I love it.
Yeah, beef jerky good.
But it's not really a grocery store. I mean, you can get eggs and milk there, but...
Yeah, same thing with us. Milk was a big thing. We have a huge dairy lobby in Quebec. Really powerful dairy lobby.
It's really moving.
Yeah, but again...
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Yeah. You lactose intolerant?
No, I'm
I am.
not.
I
Although
am
on
honestly.
dialysis, I'm not supposed to. Basically, what they told me in the nutrition lecture is anything you may like, you can't have. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I was
Because
vegan for 8 years, so I kind of understand a little bit that like all these foods get cut out, and I lived on rice and beans for a long time, tofu. But
I actually had red rice, red beans and rice.
oh, it's super good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
It
good.
was. I mean, like I could live in that thing, man. I mean, like seriously, it was so comfort food. It wasn't even funny.
I eat
But
it when I go
again, I'm
camping.
not
Yeah.
supposed to have that on dialysis.
Really?
Nope.
Is it the like the sugar in the rice?
Nope. It's the fluid in the rice, but it's the beans. Beans have a lot of phosphorus in them.
Okay. It's a bummer. Beans are so good.
Oh, I
Like
love
super
red
good
beans
for
and
them.
rice. I'm not a usual bean fan, but I love red beans and rice. That is
Oh,
just
beans
like
are-
I'm hoping to find a place around here that serves it that's really good, and so far I haven't. I'm probably gonna
yeah.
have to go north, and because in Arizona, there's like only really two cities, Tucson
Yeah.
and Phoenix, and then there's everywhere else.
It's Quebec too.
Everything everywhere
Montreal and
else.
Quebec City, and then everything else is just Hicks.
Yeah. So I have a few quick questions for you before you go.
Okay, sure.
Do you want to do this on a regular basis?
It's really depends on my schedule, but
Okay.
if I'm free, I'll let you know before, like
Okay.
the day before or whatever.
Okay.
Um,
But you said
Otherwise,
Saturdays was pretty good usually.
Saturday nights, yeah, because I don't work on Sundays, and I finish work around 9. I get home for 9:30 usually,
Okay.
my time. I don't know what time it is for you right now. It's probably like around supper time.
Well, it's about 9 o'clock.
Okay, it's about 9 o'clock. So there you go. So I don't mind. I stay up late. I'm a night owl, so I don't mind.
Okay.
We could do this whenever. Maybe not on a weekly basis, but like just when I'm free. Because like sometimes I, excuse me, write my game on Saturday nights, and or I have other responsibilities or activities to do with my brother or friends. But I would definitely be interested in talking about GURPS and socialism. So
Gurps and socialism, Gurps. And one thing I find absolutely hilarious, some people are like, you shouldn't like GURPS because it's one of those, traditional companies and blah, blah, blah. I go, do you realize that they got raided by the Secret Service for, quote, teaching people how to hack?
yeah, not just that, but SJ Games doesn't give a shit about GURPS. Like honestly, they're more into Munchkins. So like,
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
I think the reason why is because I hate saying this. I love GURPS, but people don't buy rules, they buy settings. And with third edition, I like it, but they didn't come out with a defining setting. But they did that for fourth. They learned their
Dungeon
lesson.
Fantasy. There's Discworld.
I mean,
There's quite a few.
I mean, there's later on, but initially, I don't think they had many.
No. GURPS Third had World War
You're right.
II, but like it's World War II. It's not really a setting.
Yeah, like I would love to expand the World of Darkness that's in GURPS
Mhm.
because I think it'd be awesome to have a dalliance into the Shadowlands or dealing with the little people.
Right. But
And
I think GURPS is really more, but they put that part of the game onto the GM. That's fun. Like when I remember when I was starting out, I was like, man, I need to find a module to run, and I'm like, oh fuck, there are none. So then I said, oh, I'll just start with this little Caravan to Aeneris thing and see where it goes. And then I ended up just writing my own story and my own setting.
oh yeah,
This and that. And now I'm working on another game where it's based in reality, but like most of the contents and the politics are all mine. So and I like that. I like that it does that. Although one of the few D&D games that I really enjoy playing is there's two. There's one my friend came up with everything. That's fine. Another one we started with a module, but the module ended and we just kept playing. And I think GURPS has like two. They call them adventure seeds.
yeah.
So those are cool. GURPS gives you the tools to create your own setting and your own content. For the example, in the GURPS After the End, they had everything to build your apocalypse and just to design the world around it. So really good.
Yeah,
Really good
I
stuff.
like that it gives you all the tools. The only problem is I think there's some people out there that kind of need a little bit more
Of a
of a,
push.
yeah, of a push or more something to stand on because there's if you think of GURPS, there's a lot of options. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Scrolling
not
through
like
all the
D&D
advantages.
where you pick up your sword, you beat the monster, you get the gold.
Right.
You know,
In GURPS, there's we said it. There's like a ton of options. So many advantages, skills, disadvantages, quirks, techniques. Oh my god. So there's something for everybody in GURPS. That's what I like.
oh yeah, it's I love the fact that because like one guy, it was in 3.5, wanted to play Gambit in a fantasy game. You can't really do that in 3.5. I mean,
No,
you can, but
all these
if I
really
were doing
haphazard
GURPS,
hacks.
if I were doing GURPS like that, no
Yeah,
problem,
you stat it
easy
up.
as hell. And that's why I like it. I like the fact that I don't have to come up with some proprietary word that the people who came up with the game came up with to describe stuff. People go, "What's that?" And they have every right to say that but if
Right.
it's regular words, regular. That's why I calling GURPS plain English gaming. You're plain speaking. You're not talking special or anything like that.
Yeah, it's very delineated. So it's I find there's when you go into it, there's well, you can understand it. Like when I explained GURPS to my players for we did the character creation session, it was a little front heavy, but they got it. It's very simple. And GURPS, I started them off with GURPS Lite, then we moved into GURPS Full, and it was seamless. It was easy. And now it's second nature to them. It's because it's the mechanics are relatively simple. They even have GURPS Ultralight, right? So you can just have your 4 stats, and that's that. But I find it's a front heavy game, but once you're equipped, very simple, that's why my
Oh
game
yeah,
has been smooth. It's been very smooth because I've been quick with the rules. I don't let things slow down. The pacing is good, and most things can be resolved with a simple 3d6 roll. It's great. I don't have to have all these other dice. Everyone's got 3d6 laying around.
yeah.
And
You
the
can
model,
easily pick it up at any store. Heck, you could go to one of those convenience stores and get a bunch of 6-sided dice.
yeah, raid your old game cabinet from when you were a kid.
Yeah,
There's going to be a dice included
you don't
in every
need
game.
special dice. You need just
Yeah,
a piece of paper and pen. And you're
yeah,
good to go.
pretty much. It's great. It's fantastic, actually. Like what is it here? Like in the thing that takes the most time is like someone will go, I want to shoot at this guy. I go, okay, sweet, he's 30 yards away. Or we go by meters. And they go, oh, what's the modifier on that? And they got to go check their character sheet. But it's resolved relatively quickly. So, where things slow down too is like I had a buddy go, I want to throw a knife. I go, what's the range on that knife? And I'm like, oh. So I go look into the GURPS high tech, and they have a table for how heavy the knife is versus how strong you are. That's the range. I go, that's a little too much for me. So we'll just say it's 15 feet, 20 feet, something like
Yeah.
that. But like, that's the part of GURPS where, things get really detailed. You don't have to have that,
No.
So I think there's a podcast called Only the Parts You Need. That's about GURPS. And
Oh, really?
yeah, so that's for me, that's how I explain GURPS to people. It's a very in-depth system, but it's only as complicated as you want it to be. So for the tank game, I did some really gritty detail stuff where like they were doing maintenance, they were keeping things clean, traversing the turret a certain amount, purposely choosing to fail your vehicle check to slide the tank a certain direction, things like that. This game, it's a little bit more smooth in terms of like rules. I let certain things slide here and there, but I don't have to go into any amount of detail like I had to before. And that's the beauty of the system. It's the same system. What's also incredible is that I was playing a World War II game with tanks. I'm using the same system to play a post-apocalyptic game. I could use the same system to play a spacefaring game. I could use the same system to do dungeon fantasy, magic, superheroes, whatever have you. As long as you know GURPS, you can play it. And
Yeah.
like I said earlier, once you know GURPS, it's you can just pick it up and play it like that. So
yeah, and that's why I love GURPS because I like other game systems. Don't get me wrong. And there's some things. There's like I like the world of Rifts. I like the world of it. I'm not the biggest fan of their game mechanics.
right. But if you like
I
GURPS,
like, yeah, I like Shadowrun. Never liked the game mechanics. And then there's that like Tribe 8, which I tried figuring out how that worked, and I just said, no.
Yeah.
But I liked the idea of the world, though. It was like the most original idea I've heard. It was like post-apocalyptic / religious / like a bunch of things. It seemed like, and it just seemed new and different. But I didn't want to learn another dang game system to, and that's the other thing. That's why, because a lot of new players don't want to learn 15 different systems. That's why 5e is so popular, because you don't have to think. You just use the same stuff. But I'm sorry, 5e can do fantasy kind of.
Precisely, it does dungeon fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So it works for that. One thing that I really lamented was the sheer lack of skills. It's kind of like, oh no, there's only like 10 skills. And
what I didn't like about it is not only didn't have that, I mean, they didn't have that many skills. They didn't have descriptions for the skills, really.
What's just great about GURPS is so much of the rules is just like, you don't know how a skill works. If you read the description, it'll tell you.
Yeah. In plain English.
A great example is the dropping skill, where it's like, it's like roll every time you drop something. I'm like, super simple. Then you go to the psychology skill. It's like roll to diagnose a problem. Then there's other skills like first aid that have a much larger explanation, because you can do different things with it. So there's there's just little rules everywhere, and little tidbits that can help you. In GURPS High Tech on the side, like a great example is a character recently the doctor character set up a distillery.
Yeah.
There's rules for post-apocalyptic distilleries. It's dope. It's all there for me, in the GURPS High Tech book. I don't have to lift a finger. They just give you the cost and the materials you need, and it tells you the output. Same thing they have quick and dirty tech for batteries, for all kinds of things. In fact, I've found that there's a few things that are even lacking in the GURPS 4th edition high tech book. I wish they had more of, medical supplies, foodstuffs. I wish they would give me common prices for vegetables and food and things like that. But I gotta come up with that. So.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, that's kind of arbitrary.
It is arbitrary, but it's because for me in my game, it's I want them to think about water and food and things like that.
Oh, no, I understand.
Yeah. So if they go to the market to buy food,
that's why I like GURPS, is because you can go to say an anthropologist and give them the situation in your GURPS campaign. Don't even tell them what it is. This is a society I got an idea about. What do you think? And they could give you a logical, rational, intelligent answer that would fit with your campaign.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to know it. But if you say, hey, I'm doing a GURPS game, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's kind of a realistic game system. I'm coming to you because of X. And you explain it to them, they're like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. Well, I think it would, because I had a friend of mine who was doing a sociology class, and she's like, I got to come up with a whole world, and I'm like, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's a lot of work.
I've been doing that for a decade at least by that point.
Yeah, coming up with all this stuff, and then the players build on it, right?
Yeah.
What I love is every time I say a name, I see everybody go write in their notebooks. Then it adds to the world. They remember the names more than I do. I'll be like, oh, who's that guy? Oh yeah, Orfeo Terrizzi. That's it. The bartender. Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, that was his name. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
And but GURPS lends itself to that kind of realism, and that's what I really like about it. I wanted a game where your actions really mattered. And bam, I was frustrated playing D&D all the time, being limited by the stories you could tell with D&D. Like in GURPS, you can create your own spells. The rules are there for it. It's fantastic. Limitations, things like that, and the GURPS powers. You come up with anything you want. It's great. I created a monster out of I was also freaked out at the lack of a monster manual. I was like, what am I gonna do? I have this session coming up where they're fighting some kind of mutated creature. Well, I built one. Wasn't that hard?
Yeah.
So, I gave it, tendril attacks and a claw attack. Well, not a claw attack. It was a meat pillar, I called it. But it was crazy. It was this creature that was, so the story goes, the raiders who attacked the fair retreated into the piscine, or the pool, NDG pool. And one of these things called altered beasts, which are like irradiated animals, went there. And it fused with all the corpses that died from chlorine gas and created this like amalgamation of human bodies monster. So it was like stumbling on itself. It was really cool. So I got to give it all these like interesting things, and there were rules for that, like having no defined physiology, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, it bleeds, so it still bleeds, but it doesn't rely on having a single heart or a discernible. Like you can't go eyeing for the head. Well, it's like which one? There's like 15, and they don't affect. It doesn't affect how the monster reacts. I gave it hard to kill, and then I came up with it had its own cool power where it would compel you'd have to make will saves. Is it will in this game? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's will saves. So yeah, you would make will saves, or you were compelled to walk towards it, and if you got close enough, it would engulf you and make you part of it. And that was, it was easy to create. Like in because it's all there, right? So if you do that in D&D, you run the risk of like creating this crazy overpowered creature, whereas in GURPS, everything's statted, everything's there for you to interact with.
Oh yeah, because like in 5th edition, like I can't. I hate trying to come up with a creature because I love doing it, but in 5th edition, it's so darn hard because there's no. Even in previous editions, I had ways of creating a creature that was relatively powerful enough to. But now it's like I can't judge anything. It's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah,
and then you have that. What I really disdain about 5th edition, the whole we can't hurt people's feelings thing. So if you sleep overnight and you have this huge boo-boo, like you fell on your skull and you have it cracked open overnight, you're healed. No, that's video game territory as far as I'm concerned. If you want to play a video game, play a video game.
Yeah. So like example is in GURPS, I think 2 out of the party members have been shot but didn't die. And, I had the doctors of the party constantly checking the wounds to make sure they don't get infected. And when I told them, I said, you guys will heal 1 HP per day. They were like, what? What I do when like after a big battle and they're low on health, I'll, do a little time skip, give them time for themselves before the next job starts. And we did a session once where like we just did the first day of their time off. They helped the player move from one house to another. They went hunting. They talked to a few of the NPCs, and that was it. Like, it was just a really laid back, chill session. I said, okay, 6 more days pass. You guys heal. Like, if you have one of them was both of them, the doctors healed more because they're doctors and they can treat their own wounds. Everybody else, but they were back to full, after 6-7 days, and they were ready to go adventuring again. But the time off was part of the story. It's not like you just went to bed and the round came out of your shoulder and it sealed up. Like no. You're carrying those wounds.
Yeah,
very interesting stuff.
You can't take a nap and have your demon claw attack on you just go away.
Right. Like one character for that creature that I described, they got the chlorine because the raiders were making chlorine explosives in the pool, and so there were a few of them that were ready. So they the religious character brought them in and set them off. He walked out of the room with a piece of shrapnel in him, and then the next session, the whole thing was like, holy fuck, we got to save his life. So they tried doing surgery on him, fucked that up. He was bleeding like crazy, so they had to do a bunch of first aid checks to stop him from bleeding out. Brought him to a proper surgeon and got him fixed. Like, that was the session, dealing with the fallout of that wound.
I also like it because I think GURPS would be also really useful in teaching science.
Yeah, well, there's skills for everything, every kind of science.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
understanding.
I would love. I mean, I'm not a teacher, but if I was, I'd love to sit down with the kids. Okay, this is not D&D. This is GURPS. It's a real game system, and have them go. Okay, you don't understand how that works. Go do a report on it.
Right. Like, I'm planning for my to help me get into grad school. You need to do extracurriculars. and I'm at a liberal arts college, right, where it's all about the history and reading and getting close to the source
Yeah.
material, right? So I'm thinking, I know a lot about Marx. I know a lot about the 19th century labor struggles. Fuck it, I'm going to run a GURPS game that takes place in the 19th century in England, where you're going to be doing missions for the International Working Man's Association. Participating in the labor movement. Like, that'll be educational, fun, and it's powered by GURPS, because GURPS is the perfect game to do something like that with.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that that George R. R. Martin came up with, that people love so much, that Game of Thrones, GURPS is his favorite game system.
Yep. So I've heard we talked about GURPS.
And I'm like, it can't be. And then I realized, oh dear God, with people dying like flies. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Low magic, that's like GURPS.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I'm gonna. It's now 20 minutes past midnight. I think it's time for me to go to sleep.
I'm getting kind of tired too, so don't kid yourself. I normally go to bed around this time because I got to get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to go to dialysis. So,
Jesus Christ. Well, it was good talking to you, man, and I'll try to be on the show another time.
Okay.
Hopefully soon.
It was nice having you. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on.
Last minute.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, that's kind of how I do a lot of things. So next time I'm on, I'll tell you about how the game's going, and we can talk about previous campaigns, and I can go more into detail if you want about the tank game, because it had a pretty epic finale. They dueled their tank commander.
How much have you now? How deep do you get into the GURPS vehicles roles?
Pretty intense. Like everybody was responsible for their role in the tank. So the driver was driving, the gunner was aiming and firing, the machine gunner was doing machine gunner stuff and also communicating with the radio with high command, and the loader was loading. If the tank got hit, part of it would usually break. They'd have to try to fix it. Fires would start inside the vehicle. Live ammunition would catch fire. Things like that, holes in the enemy vehicle that you've punctured could be penetrated again if you aimed at them. Usually one hit knockout for the enemy, because the way an apex, I'm sure in the army you know this, but like an apex shell pierces and explodes. Yeah. So it kills all the occupants, things like that. I tried to make it was pretty gritty. Like just to be quick, there was a large scale battle, and their tank was totally fucked by it, and they needed to find replacement parts. So they went around looking for friendly tanks that were the same model. And when they pried open one of them, there was just a scared private with all of his dead friends holding a pistol and started shooting at them because he was so scared. And so they had to deal with that.
That'll happen.
Yeah. So breakdown of command, like dealing with a completely deranged commanding officer who would order you to commit atrocities and things like that. Hopefully there'll be a tank game too one day, but right now I'm focused on the Apocalypse one, because
cool.
It was a really fun game. I played with my brother, 2 army buddies, and a 4th guy who dropped out because he made a character so deplorable he didn't want to play him anymore. Yeah. Took all the took all the disadvantages. I was like, your character has no redeeming qualities. You're not going to want to play him anymore.
Yeah.
So, he quit, and he was also supposed to play Apocalypse, but get this, he found out that there was going to be 5 players, and he would be the 6th, and he goes, "That's too many for a game. I'm out."
Yeah, it to me that is.
Okay,
I've discovered at least my experience with running. I mean, I'm sure Matt Mercer could run for a room of 12 people. He's super DM, but a mere mortal like myself, I don't like making it a personal experience. So 3 to 5 is my limit.
So what happened? He dropped out, so we were 5, and then another guy dropped out, so we were 4. I was like, all right, we're 4 people. You could have been the 5th if you would have stuck around, but now we're too far into the game.
Yeah.
We might have another player join up who's very interestingly enough wants to play a librarian, and he's going to be about searching for old pieces of technology that still work. That's going to be really interesting to have. And my brother was maybe going to hop in for a few sessions when we do one of my friend's character arcs. He's a woodshop teacher who turned into a smuggler. And just last session, they rescued a group of teenage age kids. One of them was one of his former classmates. So he's going to learn the fate of his class. And my brother was going to play one of the classmates. They're all at the theme park being tortured by raiders.
Oh, the reason I brought up the vehicle stuff is because I love the vehicles book, the third edition vehicles book. The only problem with it is you kind of have to be an engineer to come up with stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
if you don't know what the end result you want is, it's kind of hard to figure out the kind of design of vehicle you want.
Well, I built so the sequel to the tank game. The idea is that the evil superpower that they were fighting for, built this massive, huge vehicle. So I built it in Gurps, and I was very proud of myself. But there's going to be revolutionaries who take control of that vehicle and break away and fight a civil war, basically aboard this vehicle. I managed to build it. It wasn't too bad. It just took I had to have a calculator with me to determine things like engine power and speed, things like that. But as long as if you're driving a Sherman tank, the rules are there for it. Totally fine with me. The one thing that was really funny is when you look at specifically the tanks, their acceleration is something like 2 or 3. So my brother would spend like 2-3 rounds accelerating to do a slide or something like that. But the vehicle rules are a lot of fun. I thought they were good, and I hope apparently they're coming out with a Gurps 4th edition vehicle soon.
I kind of got the impression when it came to Gurps, they kind of were like, we make more money off of the Munchkin.
But if you go to the Gurps website and you look at upcoming projects, they have development for Gurps vehicles.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, so it's coming, but just eventually. People, they've been saying it's going to be coming since Gurps 4th came out, and that was 10 years ago almost.
Yeah.
So, but apparently it's pretty close. So I'm thinking another 2-3 years, hopefully, we'll get Gurps vehicles 4th edition. Doesn't help me now, but
okay. What I would like to see, and I wish I had the money to get a serious Kickstarter going. Give them the money to do a tech update for both 3rd and 4th. That game's desperately needed at this point.
Yeah, when you look at tech level 8 stuff, you're like, it's not modern anymore. A great example, for instance, is the G36 rifle is considered a Tech 8 rifle. That gun's 20, 30 years old now.
Yeah.
So that's one example. And when you look at computers, it's computers now can do so much more than they did 10 years ago. So that tech update would be really useful, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing a modern game.
Oh yeah, modern or beyond, future beyond that. Yeah, definitely.
Another thing too is the technology kind of gets game breaking when you get to tech level 10 or 11.
Yeah.
So
which is why I kind of avoid doing. I would prefer to do what I call techno feudal society at level 10, and in space too, where people have technology, but not everyone has everything. I mean, you may have space technology on one hand, but
you're still using bullets like in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
Yeah, simple. I think Alien does a good job of doing that too, where you have to deal with problems of cryo sleep and things like that, where the technology is advanced, but it's not super advanced.
Yeah,
you have to deal with human limitations. Because you get to the 10th level, you have some wild stuff I don't even know. I haven't looked at Gurps High Tech in a long time, or Ultra Tech.
It does have some wild stuff. It doesn't verge on poof. It happens, but because they had, I don't know if you know, but they had higher than 15 tech level in one Pyramid magazine. They had up to 25.
I can't even imagine. At that point, you're just writing fantasy.
Basically, what I got from tech level 25 was this: use the magic system. It's easier.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Because you know so much about the universe, you literally can bend the universe with your theoretical, tools.
Yeah, it's basically like having a Dyson sphere, right?
Yeah.
So you can harness the energy of the sun and you do whatever you want. All right. Any closing comments?
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
I named it Talking About Gurps and Stuff because I thought we'd go off on tangents. So I kind of prepared it there. But yeah. So this is my first official, not just test live stream. So
I would say a success.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with myself. I would think it was good. I was kind of getting desperate. I was hoping somebody would talk with me, and the fact I found somebody who likes Gurps and who's a leftist, I'm like, the holy grail.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna let you go because both of us need to sleep.
Yeah, I need to go dodo.
Well, I'll talk. You know how to get a hold of me, so.
Yep, same.
Yep.
All right, man.
Yep,
Take care.
Talk to you later. Bye. See you, everybody. Been a great podcast. Talk to you later. Bye.